Monday, June 29th. I've been learning things over lockdown. I've discovered what Zoom is. I've learnt what it means to deliver a live stream service, looking into the camera, where the camera is, what sound is. Has to be said, though, that really is Paul that makes all that happen. I've always done craft, but over this weekend I learned a different kind of felting. I've done needle felting and wet felting, but this is Nuno felting, and I showed you, if you were watching the service, two of the scarves I made. Here's one. You can see the design on the shimmery fabric. Here's the other. There. Of course, there's always a little bit of glitter. I like a bit of sparkle. But as I was doing this, and I mentioned it in the service yesterday, I realised that as we say goodbye to the letter of Peter, James and John, that this particular craft is really an illustration of what they're trying to get across to us. If we see these scarves or the original pieces of fabric as our lives, then we begin to see that what happens is that a design is laid on the fabric. And that's what God did in his word, through the Old Testament, and especially into the New Testament through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. As we understand that story, and as we not just hear it or read it, but as we accept it for ourselves, that is God's design laid on our lives. And as we desire to absorb that design, to accept that design for ourselves, to have that design imprinted on our lives, that's where the felting comes in. In order for this fabric, which was originally tiny threads of wool laid across each other just on the surface of the scarf, that's what God has done. It's there, it's ready. But for it to be accepted into the scarf, to become one with the scarf, it has to be rubbed. It has to be rolled, like I said yesterday, up to 1,000 times in order for the fibres of the design to work their way through to the reverse of the fabric, so that I can't just blow the wool away, which I could have done beforehand. I can't even pull it away without taking it. If I were to pull really hard, I'd simply tear the whole thing apart. In other words, God's design, if we accept him and allow it to penetrate and allow it to become part of us, cannot simply be separated from us. We become one with God's design. We become one with his plan, and Jesus and his spirit and his life are part of us. That's the felting illustration. And that's what Peter, James and John are trying to get across to us. We'll say goodbye to them after today. But what they're trying to say is we need to be one with Jesus. He needs to be so intrinsically part of our lives that it can't be blown away, can't be tugged away by temptation or worldly things that seem more attractive at the time. If God's design for our lives is truly imprinted and woven into the fabric of who we are, then we will always show God's design. So my question is this, the thought for today. Do you recognize God's design in your life? life and for your life? Do you recognize what Jesus has done for you? And do you accept him personally? Do you choose him to be the Lord of your life? And secondly, are you willing to allow God, through circumstances, through trial, through reading, through his word, to work his design into every fibre of your being so that you become one with him? And lastly, what will you do with his design? Here it is. My newly created brand new scarf. I have two choices. I can admire it and fold it up and put it in a drawer, opening it only to glance at it lovingly for myself. Or I can wear it so that the design can be seen not just by me, but by anybody willing to look. I put it on display to show that it's worth seeing. I know what I'm going to choose. What about you? I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.